Today we're going to be talking about diffused hair loss and hair transplant surgery. But before we get started, if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you guys like the content, go ahead and give us a like. We're also going to be including our social media in the description box, as well as our recommendations and the article I wrote on the subject. So be sure to check it out. All right, let's get started. Okay, so what is diffuse alopecia? Diffuse patterned alopecia is a form of hair loss that is related to genetic hair loss. So it is the diffuse loss of all of the hair on the top of your head. It typically doesn't affect the hairline as much. It's just every hair on the head in a Norwood 6 or Norwood 5 hair loss pattern. Now, there's an important distinction to make between diffuse patterned alopecia, which is a form of genetic hair loss, and diffuse unpatterned alopecia. So diffuse unpatterned alopecia affects the entire scalp. So it can be on the sides, it could be in the back, it could be on top, it could be anywhere. So those who have diffuse patterned alopecia are still candidates for hair transplantation. Those with DUPA, diffuse unpatterned alopecia, are typically not hair transplant candidates. And I'm going to get into the reasons why. Okay, so the reason why those with DUPA, diffuse unpatterned alopecia, are not candidates is because there's no stable permanent zone. So the way hair transplant surgery works is that you have a stable permanent donor zone. So typically the sides and the back of the scalp do not bald. Those with DUPA, the sides and the back can bald. And this means that you can have surgery and the hair that you transplant is still liable to get affected by DHT. Now, those with DPA, diffuse patterned alopecia, have a stable permanent zone, but there is a risk involved, and this is probably why all of you guys have asked me to make this video. So what is the risk? Well, that's shock loss, and I'm going to describe why shock loss can occur right now. Okay, so first, what is shock loss? Shock loss is called telogen effluvium. There are three phases to the hair follicle life cycle. There is the anagen, which is the growing phase, the phase where you actually see the hair follicle. The catagen, which is the transitional phase, and the telogen, which is the resting phase. So what happens with shock loss is that a large number of hairs enter the resting phase all at once, causing a massive shed, which gives the appearance of thinning. Now, generally this is a temporary condition that gets better over time without any treatment. It usually takes 3 to 6 months. However, with individuals who suffer from genetic hair loss, the hair follicles that are greatly affected by DHT may not come back, and that is called permanent shock loss. The reason why this is important with individuals with diffuse patterned alopecia is that there's a lot of hairs that are being affected by DHT all at once, and individuals who want to have a hair transplant are at a greater risk for suffering from shock loss. Now, does that mean that you cannot have a hair transplant with diffuse patterned alopecia? No, I'm a prime example of somebody who had 3 successful hair transplants with diffuse patterned alopecia, and I'll show you guys a picture right here. That was 5 years ago. You can still see the refrigerator in the background. So how did I have 3 hair transplant procedures and not suffer any shock loss? I'm gonna explain right now. Okay, so the first thing I did was I had hair transplant procedures. That's very important because most guys want to have a mega session and just do their entire scalp all at once. This is not the best thing to do with somebody suffering from DPA, diffuse patterned alopecia. Why? Because you can, the surgeon, even if they're good, there's more chance of them getting fatigued and creating recipient sites close to native hairs, which causes trauma and causes shock loss. It's better to go in increments. So what I did was I did the hairline first, because obviously it's the most important, the mid scalp, and then lastly I did the crown. Now, it's very important that you work on the hairline first, because this is what's going to give you the most bang for your buck. This is how people see you. If I had the rest of my head bald and I was making this video, you would think I had a full head of hair because of the hairline. Okay, now the second thing was choosing the right surgeon. Researching a surgeon that has a track record of performing successful hair transplants with individuals with diffuse patterned alopecia. How I researched was I went on Hair Restoration Network, which is a free forum, and I started talking with patients, and I started looking at reviews, and I started looking at real journeys, and I found the surgeon that I felt would be the best for the job, and I started consulting with them. Don't just consult with one surgeon, consult with several. Well, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. If you guys like the video, go ahead and share it with those that you feel need the information. It's very important that we get the word out, and there's a lot of guys suffering from DPA and think they can't have hair transplant procedures, which is incorrect. I'm living proof of that. All right, till next time.